Hey everyone, and welcome back to another week of CodeReach. This is our second week of doing this thing online. I hope you guys didn't have too many questions or concerns from last week. I didn't really see that much activity in the chat, but of course, if you always have any questions, you can always message me on Edmodo. So this week we're going to be going through something pretty powerful, and this is another way that you can interact with the program, and that is to do web requests. So most of the programs that you have been creating so far are only able to communicate with the user, either through the use of graphics or through the console. We also went through file-based I/O that facilitates communication between programs, but that really pales in comparison to the power of web requests. So by using web requests, you are able to get dynamic information that is relevant when the program is run. So for example, if you have a program that tells people the weather, if you hard code the weather into your program, that weather is only relevant to when your program was created. If you run it 20 years from now, you will not be getting the weather from today. It is going to be from 20 years ago. But with using a web request, you can dynamically fetch the weather and then display it to the user so that whenever it's run, it'll always be relevant. So whenever you open a web page or download a file, you are making a web request using HTTP, which is the Hypertext Transfer Protocol. So HTTP is a predefined set of rules for how computers can communicate between each other on the web. Your computer essentially sends a message to the website server asking for some sort of information, and then the website server will respond with whatever you want. However, just like there are many ways to ask a question, there are many types of HTTP web requests. Note, however, that not all web requests simply retrieve information. You can send information too, right? Sometimes you can ask a question, and by asking that question, you're also telling someone something. Now, the two most basic web requests are the GET and the POST requests. Now, most likely you've been using these for your whole life without even knowing it. A GET request, like the name suggests, retrieves information from a website. So, for example, when you load up YouTube or you download Minecraft, you're making a GET request. POST requests, on the other hand, are generally used to send information. So whenever you submit a form or log into a website, you're most likely making a POST request. In addition to GET and POST, there are also the PUT, head, delete, patch, and options requests, but you really don't need to worry about them. They're completely outside the scope of this course. Now, I have been talking a lot from the perspective of you, a user. Now, computers generally don't really do well by trying to get information from the websites. For example, if you were to go to twitter.com, you have a whole bunch of bloat. You have the Twitter logo, you have, this text should be some sort of font. So generally, if it's supported, a website owner will generally make an API, which is an application programming interface. Now, this is similar to a website. However, it's optimized for programs to read. There are no visual elements, and the information is generally formatted in a format that's very easy to parse and load into a program. One of the most common formats that information is stored in is called JSON, or JavaScript Object Notation. So it's really a really powerful way of being able to transfer information, but for now, we're just going to think of it as a way to represent a dictionary. So for example, here is a JSON. Okay, and that's roughly equivalent to this statement in Python. Now, of course, just like dictionaries, you can nest JSON, you can add many data types. It's really just basically a representation of a dictionary. Now, web requests in Python can be made in a variety of ways, but the most simple and easy way is to use requests, which is a Python library. So to get started, simply open your command prompt or your terminal, whatever. Then go ahead and just type pip install requests. Now, I'm already going to have it installed, obviously, but this will install requests for you. Now, if you go ahead and open idle, you can go ahead and just import requests. And there you go. You'll have the power of web requests. All right, so let's get started with the GET request, which is a pretty simple request to make. So for example, right here, I'm just going to get some information from this URL. Postman Echo is essentially a service that will receive web requests and basically just echo back whatever you sent it. So we're just going to go ahead and run this. And we get this gigantic JSON, right? So if we go ahead and just type in r.text, which is the plain text of the request, this is what you get. All right, now this is not formatted, which means you can't just access it like a dictionary. However, if I were to do r.json, this is actually going to be, I'm just going to set it to J for now. we say j equals r.json, I can now access this as key value pairs in a dictionary. So for example, if I were to try to get args, which is here, I'll be able to go j at args, and then I get whatever arguments I sent. All right, so that's really how JSON works. I hope you guys get what that means now. So you may notice that there's a lot of fluff over here. You have, foo1 equals bar1 and foo2 equals bar2. And these are what we call request parameters. This allows you to send some information along with your GET request. So what you need to do is just put a question mark, and then after type in your request as key equals value pairs, and then separate them with an and sign. Now, because many special characters are reserved in HTTP, for example, the question mark, you'll have to do something called URL encoding. Now, we won't really worry about that because request actually can do that for us. So if we go ahead and open this example here, we'll see that simply I can just use params equals, and then I'll just have a dictionary over here with my request parameters. So you see, these are the exact same thing, and if I run it, I will get the exact same output. All right, so this is really one of the advantages of requests, is that it does a lot of heavy lifting for you. Let's go ahead and, for example, let's say that I want to put in a web URL, okay? So let's put in HTTPS Google. I'm just sending it this random thing. Now you can see this web service actually tells you the URL that you sent it, and this is what it is. So see, I don't have the : / I have %3a, %2f, %2f, right? So that is URL encoded for : / Now it's a giant table, so honestly just use params and it just handles everything for you. Now the second type of request we're going to be looking at is the post request. Now to send one, simply use the .post method from requests. And then after, we're just going to give it the post URL from postman-echo. Now note that some websites actually reserve certain pages to certain web request types. So for example, this /post will only accept post requests. So if we go ahead and just run this, you'll see here that we have our information. Now you do see that this is different than our GET request, in that args is no longer where we're sending the information, but we're actually sending it in the form attribute. Now this is because arguments, or request parameters, are actually sent with a request address. Okay, so this is actually can be used to route your information and stuff, but post requests and most other ways of sending information actually put it into the request body. This is why post requests are generally used to send information instead of GET requests, because there is a technical limit to how long a URL can be. However, there is no strict limit to how large a request body can be. Now, whenever you're making a web request, you may sometimes need to send information as what is called the request headers. The request headers are kind of like the prequel to the story that is the request. They contain information about the request, additional options, and authentication. Let's look at the request headers for a GET request to massyhacks.ca. Okay, so I've just opened up Chrome here, and we're just going to head over to massyhacks.ca. Okay, so now what we can do is actually we can go ahead and hit F12, or I'm just going to do it so you guys can see. I'm just going to go to More Tools, then I'm going to go to Developer Tools, and then this will be over here. And now I can actually be able to see the requests over here. So I'm just going to go ahead and refresh the page. And now I can see so many requests. Now, we can go ahead and just click here. This will be the main massyhacks requests. We can see this is the method get. Our status code is 200, which means OK. And then after, we have all these response headers, and here are our request headers. Now, the main ones you need to know are the cookie, DNT, and the user agent headers. These are some of the most common headers that are ever sent. So the cookie header stores all the cookies your browser has stored for the site. So cookies allow sites to store information about you and personalize the site based on your interests and preferences. They can also be used to track users and engagements, among many other uses. So for example, generally when you log into a website, it'll set a little cookie so that you don't need to constantly log in whenever you refresh the page. We also have the DNT. Now this header asks the server not to track you. Now it's up to the website to comply with this request, but generally it's been pretty good among the larger websites. And then finally is the user agent. This header tells the server what is sending the request. So for example, here we see is a Mozilla /5.0, and then after the actual information is usually at the end, which is Chrome 81. As different browsers are slightly different, the server can use this information to determine what web page to send depending on what browser supports what. Now, similar to a request, the server also sends headers with the response. So let's go ahead and just scroll up here. We'll get our response headers. Now, there are quite a few. Now, you don't need to worry about a lot of these. The one you probably will need to know, though, is the content type header. So this tells the client, which is you in this case, what type of content is being returned. So for example, it might be an image, or it might be, for example here, it's HTML, or it can be JSON information. You can use this header in your request to tell the server what you're sending it. The content type is generally a MIME string, which looks like this, a type/subtype. So for example, JPEG images have a MIME type of img/jpeg, and the JSON text has a MIME type of application/JSON. Now, plain text will have text/plain, and that is generally the default content type if you don't set one. So if you do need to send additional request headers, you can go ahead and do that in the headers parameter of your request. Now, note that requests already send some headers, such as its user agent, which is requests, and some other miscellaneous stuff about your system. So if we go ahead and just run this here, we can go ahead and see that there are some headers over here in headers. All right, so it's received our headers. Now this could be used by the web server for many different purposes, but we won't worry about that. Now you can also look at the response headers by doing r.headers. So this is the dictionary, and then after I'm just going to assume that there's a content type header. There usually is. We go ahead and type that. There it goes right there. We can just print out all the headers if we want, and this is what postman-echo.com has sent us in its response. So we can see here that the response content is of type application/JSON, which is correct. This is JSON. And it's also, the server is Nginx, which is a very popular web server. Now, set-cookie is asking the client, which is request in this case, to set a certain cookie called sales.sid to this value. All right, so the last thing we're going to be going through here is authentication. Now, generally, APIs and most websites require you to log in. So we can actually send our login information through requests. So for example, here we're going to be using the authorization basic type, which is just a username and password. All right, so all we do is we set the auth parameter to our username, password over here, and we can go ahead and run this. And then here we go. We can see here that it is accepted authorization, and this is how it's encoded. Basically, it does this. It does user :pass, and then it encodes it in base 64. Now, another common type of authentication is bearer token authentication. This is generally used for APIs, and it's simply a token. To authorize this way, all you need to do is set a header called authorization, and then you put the content as bearer, then space plus token. And of course, you just have your header parameter, and then you send it along with the rest of your headers. All right, so the final thing we're going to do today is actually we're going to put all the information that we've learned today into an actual useful program. So in this case, we're going to be using the Movie Database API to allow us to get the information for all of the episodes in a TV show. So to get started, let's go ahead and go to themoviedb.org. Go ahead and create an account. I'm just going to create one. Let's just call CR_demo. 123. Let's just set the password to, let's say, CodeReach 123. You guys can go ahead and use this account. All right, and I'm just going to put CRDemo_F at 412.294.xyz. Okay, so if you guys don't want to set up an account, go ahead and log in with those credentials. Please don't be a jerk, and just don't change the password. All right, so let's go ahead and sign up. And then after, we just need to verify this. So I'm just going to wait for an email. All right, so now I've gone ahead and go and click the link that it's given me. So let's go ahead and just demo. Oh, it's _demo. All right, I've just gotten a nice email here, and it's CodeReach 123. And we are now logged in. So let's go ahead and now request our API key. So we're just going to go here, and let's go to settings. And then we can go ahead and click API. And then we can go ahead and click create. So we are a developer, and we're going to go ahead and just read through this and accept it. All right, so now we have our API key, which is over here. All right, so let's go ahead and just try and look through their API documentation. So if we go here, their documentation is actually really good, so you guys should read it, and I'm just gonna guide you through how you would generally read an API documentation. So the first thing we want to do is just read the introduction. All right, now I've used this API before, so we already actually passed this step. The next one we want to go through is authentication. So this is how they want to authenticate. So here we have the API key, all right, and we also have the bearer token. So looks like we just want to use a bearer token authentication. So let's go ahead and start that. So let's import requests. And then after, let's say data equals requests dot get. And then we're just going to leave that empty for now, but we're going to give it headers equals headers. And let's just create a dictionary here. And it wants authorization. And then we're going to be using a bearer token here. And we're just going to put token here. Our token here is this. Let's just copy, should be in our settings. API right here. So let's copy this. Oh, here. Our API read access token. We are using version 4 authentication here. So let's go ahead and just do that. And here's our token here. All right, this is pretty long, but that's okay. And let's go ahead and just save that. And now let's find out how we can actually retrieve information. So let's say I just want to retrieve all the episode names of a TV show in a season. So let's go ahead and probably go to TV episodes. And we see, okay, so get the TV episodes detailed by ID. Okay, maybe that's not what we want. Maybe it's TV seasons. Oh yeah, look at that. It responds with an array, which is a list of episodes. So this is exactly what we want. So let's see how we can go ahead and do that. So we need to make a get request to TV/TV_ID/season/season number. Okay, here's just a quick correction. We'll need to be using the regular API key here. Their version 4 API is actually not completed yet. However, we did read in the documentation that we can use bearer token with v3 as well. So let's just paste that in here and let's continue. So we have some path parameters. So this is another way that we can retrieve information with get requests, is by actually changing the path of our request. So it's looking for a TV ID and a season number. So I'm not quite sure what a TV ID is. So let's go ahead and just go here. TV ID. Okay, so now looking at how this API is structured, it's probably the ID of the TV show. Now it is, because I've used this API before, but this is kind of the stuff that you'll need to think about sometimes, because they might not tell you all the time. So let's go ahead and just go to TV then. And then we can actually go ahead and, we can go to search, and then we can search TV shows. So let's go ahead and let's just use their try it out method here. Paste in our API key. And let's say Big Bang Theory. All right, so let's send the request. Here's our response over here. And we can see that there is the Big Bang Theory. That's what we're looking for. And this has ID 1418. So this is what we're going to be looking for our seasons. So let's go back to TV seasons. And let's write our little request here. So we're going to be accessing it here at the very top. api.themoviedb.org/3. All right, /TV/ and let's use string formatting here. Season/season number, and let's dot format this with and let's just go ahead and say season 7. All right, So here's our data, and here's our response here. Sorry, we'll get the response once we run this. Let's save the source. All right, so let's go ahead and just type d.json because we know that the request or response is in JSON. And we say, okay, invalid API key. Okay, let's try the regular authentication method. Perhaps this is broken. So to do that, we are going to be sending parameters. If we go back to the authentication part, you'll see how we're supposed to do that. Not here. Authentication over here. So it looks like we're going to be just using an API key, which is a request parameter with the name of API underscore key. So let's go ahead and do that. We're putting it in params equals. Let's just put the name of this here, and it's going to be your token over here. All right, so let's go ahead and remove these headers because we're not sending anything extra, and delete that. Now, of course, this is just generally how you need to look through these APIs. It takes a bit of time to understand how they work. So now let's go ahead and try d.json, and hopefully we get, okay, looks like we do. Let's go ahead and expand this. All right, so I didn't really think that through. The Big Bang Theory has quite a bit of information. So let's go ahead and go back to TV seasons, and we can actually see what we want. So the object is over here, and we're looking for their episodes. So let's go ahead and just go at episodes directly. So let's say edata equals d.json at episodes. Okay, and now this should be a shorter bundle of information. If we go ahead and just print that. Oh, it's still 801 lines. Okay, let's keep going then. We are looking for the episode name. So name right here. So we have episodes at name. So let's go ahead and just now loop through this because this is an array, right? So let's go ahead and say for episode in edata. Let's print edata at episode. Well, this will be an episode itself. Let's say episode at name. All right, so if we run this here we have all of the episodes here. So see how this is very dynamic, right? So like, for example, if I were to say, if the Big Bang Theory was still on air, then after what I could do is I could just release this program, and then as people use it, they can just increment the season number. So we could be up to season 17. When I created this program, there was no season 17. However, they'll still be able to access the information for season 17. So that is really the beauty of RoboQuest, is that it allows your programs to be timeless. They can be used whenever, and as long as the API is still operating and compatible, you'll get that information for when the program was run. Alright guys, so this wraps up our lesson this week on web requests. If you guys have any questions, of course, make sure to either type them in the chat or message me on Edmodo. Now this week what I want you guys to do is actually try to create a fun little program that's actually useful using some APIs. Now if you guys aren't sure what to do, try to make a program that allows you to search a TV series, and then after you can select what series you want to talk about, and then after it'll get the series' current season, and then what episodes are in the season and the name of the episodes. So we'll go ahead and talk about that next week. But for now, thank you guys for joining me today, and I hope that you guys have a great week.